Okay, welcome everyone. As we welcome in Dr. Yudel, Menachem Yamansky, Marshall Castle, Mo Kushner, Irving Fishbaum, Shimon Klein, Mel Zachter, Baruch Ian, Mark Frankel, Shalom Fogel, Ruvain Pollack, Stephen Holtzman, Yitzi Muller, Avi Ament, Moshe Zuckerman, Rabbi Kranz, David Helfgott, and Kol Loshin, and here in Shul, Reb Blumenfeld. It's wonderful to have you. Berish Gesseman, wonderful to have you as well. Wonderful to have everybody. Reb Kramer, Reb Pesach Rosenberg. We welcome in Saba, Ruvain Shanit, Rich Lenner, and Sandy Grunfeld has just joined us. Ilya Shutman has just joined us. Abe Arbach is coming in now, as people are arriving slowly. We are holding, as we are dedicated by A.B. Spry and family for the safety of the soldiers and all of Klal Yisrael, for Issazev ben Yuta, by Shimon Klein, Lila Nishmas, Asher Anshel ben Yehuda, Gittel Bashmol Pinchas, by Irving Fishbaum for his Gesund, Isser ben Rezel, for Avigdor Aya ben Rivka. Our grandson finally has a name, and it is Shmuel Yehuda ben Chava. He should handle the bris all right and be well, and we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig that has just came in and joined us, Abe Arbach, and we are holding at the Gemara of Daf Chafei Amud Aleph. The Gemara on Daf Chafei Amud Aleph, 7 lines into the Daf, so we're a little bit ahead of the game. Let's take time to recap over here and say what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a very specific case, and you know when we get to very specific cases, we need Marshall. What happened over here is that Marshall's ox barreled straight into Mel's property and gored Mel Shar. So Marshall hops up and down and says, Tam, Chatzi Nezek. Well, not so simple. Reb Tarfon says, Keren B'Rishus HaNizik pays a Nezek Shalom, even when he's a Tam. Right? So according to Reb Tarfon, Marshall will have to pay a Nezek Shalom from his idios, from his best property. According to the Rabbanan, no, it's only a Chatzi Nezek. So what is going on over here? And Gedalia Engel is joining us. Again, 9, huh? Again, that elusive 9. 9. Anyway, Rabbi Krause comes in, he'll make it 10. If Rabbi Elia will walk across the street, he'll make it 10. What happens over here is Reb Tarfon makes a kal v'chomer. He says, Madach Shein and Regel, where the animal damages while he eats, or where the animal damages while he walks, which is potter in the Rishus HaRabim, is chayiv for the first time a nezek shalom on Mel's property. So Keren, which is chayiv in the Rishus HaRabim, chatzi nezek, should surely be chayiv the first time in Mel's property a nezek shalom. That's Rabbi Tarfon's logic. The Rabbanan say, yeah, but there's a Torah rule, which we're going to learn out from the Torah, of Daya Ilavai Minadin Liyais Kinadain. Since the Kal V'Chomer is predicated on Keren being a Chatzi Nezek in the Rishus HaRabim, and therefore it is the origin of the Kal V'Chomer, that in the Rishus HaNizek it should also be a Chatzi Nezek. and not a nezek shalom. So therefore, the Rabbanan applied dayai, and Reb Tarfon does not apply dayai. Now, I want to speak it out more, because we're going to talk about this the whole night, so it's kedai to shmooze a little bit. The Gemara is going to right away ask that dayo, you cannot argue with dayo. Dayo is a Torah principle. When Miriam spoke the microscopic Lashon Hara, which on her level she was punished for, when Miriam spoke the Lashon Hara, so there was a kal v'chomer. If she would spit out her father, right, she would be incarcerated for one period of incarceration, which is 7 days. Incarceration by tzaras is 7 days. Right? When they want to see if the tzaras spread, so they do incarceration for 7 days. So if she spit at her father and embarrassed her father, she would be incarcerated 7 days. If she spits at Hashem, because here she did something which was an affront to the Rabbeinu Shalom, she should be incarcerated 14 days. But Dayo Ilavay Minadin Liyos Kinadan. Since we're learning it out from the father, so it's enough 7 days. So you see that everyone holds of Daya. So how could Reb Tarfon not hold of Daya? Right? Everybody, even Marshall holds of Daya. Everybody holds of Daya.
Dayenu.
Right. He's already far gone. He's already holding by Dayenu. Leaped right over Chanukah and Purim, and he's right there by Pesach.
Source of good bourbon.
Right. Marshall, we know. He's also spinning like a dreidel. But anyway, so there's always one. We have Tzvi Apachinsky joining us. Good to have you. So Reb Tarfon holds the following svara. Reb Tarfon says, when I don't hold of Daya? I don't hold of Daya when if you employ Daya, it refutes and makes meaningless the kal v'chomer. For Daya to make the kal v'chomer useless, there we don't say Daya. You see, by this kal v'chomer, we learn out from the kal v'chomer, because we don't have any source, we learn out from the kal v'chomer that for an affront to the Rabbeinu Shalom, you're incarcerated 7 days. You wanted to say 14 days, there we say Daya. But we learn at least out from the kal v'chomer, which we wouldn't know otherwise, 7 days. Over here, in our case, the Keren in Mel's property, we know is a chatzi nezek. Because by Keren, it doesn't say any location. It doesn't say b'stei acher. So Keren is a chatzi nezek everywhere. If we're going to now say Daya, then we're going to make the kal v'chomer useless. We'll learn, the only thing we could learn out from this kal v'chomer is that it should be a nezek shalom in Mel's property. If we don't learn that out, then we're learning out nothing. We're making the kal v'chomer moot. And therefore, there, Reb Tarfon says we don't say Daya. So now that you got the background over here, because we already know Chatzi Nezek in Mel's property from the fact that by Keren it doesn't specify a Chatzi Nezek only in one place. It's Chatzi Nezek everywhere. So once we know Chatzi Nezek, what are we learning from the Kal V'chomer? The only thing we're learning from the Kal V'chomer is that in Mel's property, a tam should be a Nezek Shalom. And there we have our minion. Baruch Hashem. If we had to, we could have a Musaf. We don't have to have a Musaf. Be able to say a Kaddish after the Shir. There is a higher concentration of Shechina when you learn with the minion. So it's a really thank you everybody that makes it possible. And Shelley Zeitlin has just joined us for our 27th Zoomer of the evening. So now let's see the Gemara inside. Because we read it for you, we had a long-winded, we're holding at the Gemara on Chafei Amud Aleph. So, V'Reb Tarfon Leslay Dayai? Says the Gemara with surprise. Reb Tarfon doesn't hold of Daya? What are you talking about? Daya deraisi. As I told you, Daya is a biblical rule. The Tanya, Medin Kal V'chomer Keitzad. How does it work when we learn something from a Kal V'chomer? V'yomer Hashem al Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, V'avia yarok b'faneha. In the case, I reversed it. In the case where her father would spit in her face, in other words, where her father would want to give her a insult, so to speak. Haloisi kolem shivas yamim. Wouldn't she be disgraced for 7 days? So kal v'chomer l'shchina. Then surely, if it's going to be a lesson, a rebuke from the Shechina, then surely she should be incarcerated one extra term, which would be 14 days. But we say that since we're learning out that the incarceration should be from a father, it's enough that which you're deriving, Leah is Kenadain, like the origin. So therefore, by the father it's 7 days. So by the Rabbeinu Shalom it's also 7 days. So you see that we employ Daya. So here the Gemara right away gives the answer that I told you in my long-winded preface. Ki leslei Daya. When does Reb Tarfon not hold of Daya? Heicha de mifrach kal v'chomer. That's only if we employ Daya, we would render the kal v'chomer useless, moot. Heicha de loy mifrach kal v'chomer, but where it doesn't render the kal v'chomer moot, is lei Daya. So Hasam over there, without the kal v'chomer, we wouldn't know the Shechina at all. Hacha shiva de Shechina like Sive. It doesn't say the 7 days of the Shechina. So we learn out 7 from the Kal V'chomer if our father spits at her, and 14 we say Daya. Also Kal V'chomer, the Kal V'chomer wants to bump it up to 14, and I see Arbisa, also Daya then subtracts, Apik Shiva takes away 7, V'ukei Shiva, and you have at least a 7. Aval Hacha, but over here by Keren, Chatzi Nezek Siv. Keren is a Chatzi Nezek regardless where. Because it, unlike by Shein and Regel where it says Bir B'stei Acher, by Keren it doesn't say a location. So we already know that in Mel's property it's a Chatzi Nezek. V'asa Kal V'chomer, and the Kal V'chomer comes and says it should be another Chatzi Nezek, Avaisi Chatzi Nezek Achrina. And says that just like Shein and Regel in Mel's property is a Nezek Shalom, this should be also a Nezek Shalom, and as a Nezek Shalom. Darshis Daya, if you're going to subtract that extra Chatzi Nezek with Daya, Africh le Kal V'chomer, you make the whole Kal V'chomer moot, you make the whole Kal V'chomer useless. Says the Gemara, the Rabbanan say Shiva de Shechina Ksive. the 7 days of an insult of the Shekhinah is written. Tisoger Shivas Yamim. That comes to say that she's sequestered 7 days. It says about Miriam that she should be sequestered 7 days. So we already know the 7 of the Shekhinah. 14 is adding 7, and Dayo says we don't add 7. So you see, you say Dayo even if you render the Kal V'Chaimer useless, even if you render the Kal V'Chaimer moot. Rabbi Tarfon responds, Hayi Tisager, that which it says Tisager Shivas Yamim is the Darshina in Dayo. It's to tell us that we employ Dayo and we use Dayo. V'Rabbanan Ksiv Kra Achrina, it says another pasuk, Vatisager Miriam. Rabbi Tarfon Ahu Dafilu Ba'alma Darshinan Dayo. From Vatisager Miriam, we learn out that we apply the rule of Dayo elsewhere also, because otherwise I would say the only reason why we employ Dayo over here is because of the covenant of Moshe Rabbeinu. But elsewhere we don't say Dayo. Kamashmon, that we say Dayo elsewhere. So now the Gemara is going to take this for a spin, as we welcome in the Weinman family as well joining us. And Rabbi Kranz is here, and Jay Siegel with a beautiful Hanukkah menorah. He's getting started early with Persumei Nisa. Nachman Chapler has joined us, and Michal has joined us. So now the Gemara takes this out for a spin through Shas. And the first place we're going to use it is by Keri of a Zav. Now we know that the Torah says that the spittle of a Zav, the body fluids, the spit of the Zav, is a avatuma, and it's metame b'maga u b'masa. It's metame when you touch it, and it's even metame if you carry it without touching it. Now, how do we know the carry of the zav? So we learn it out from a kal v'chaimer from the spit. Madach spit from a tahar is tahar. When it comes from a tameh, it's tameh, semen, which from a tar is tameh. When it comes from a zav, it should surely be tameh. And we learn out both maga and masa. We learn out both maga and masa. So let's see that first. Amalei Rav Papalabaya, v'haitana deloi dorish dayai. He doesn't employ dayai v'afal gav deloi mafrich kal v'chaimer, even though it doesn't render the kal v'chaimer moot. The Tanya, for we learned in the Braisa, Keri bezav minayin. How do we know that the semen of a zav is matame? So the Gemara says the kal v'chaimer v'dinu. Omat tar b'tar. Spittle that comes from a tar is tar. Tame b'tame. If it comes from a zav, it's tame. Tame b'tar, semen, that's tame, even if it comes from a tar. Einoi din shi'ei tame b'tame. V'kamaisile, and we use it bein lamaga, bein lamasa, to tell me that the semen is zav is metame both b'maga and b'masa. V'amai, why don't we say daya? Neima hani kal v'chaimer lamaga, because we're learning it out from tame b'tar. Now tame b'tar over there, it's only metame b'maga. It's not metame b'masa. So hani kal v'chaimer lamaga, to tell me that the semen is metame by a zav b'maga. And ahani dayai, and dayai comes la fuke masa, that's not metame b'masa. So your answer is simple. We don't need the kal v'chaimer to tell me that Keri is tamei b'maga by a zav. Keri is like everybody that's tamei b'maga. You don't need the kal v'chaimer for that. The chitay melamaga lo yitztra kal v'chaymer. The loigara megavritar. It's not any less than the semen of a tardik person. The semen of a tardik person is tamei. I don't need the kal v'chaymer to tell me that the semen of a zav is tamei. B'maga. Yitztra, no, I need it. I might think the pasuk says that by a tar semen is tummy because it's mikrei laila. It's a nocturnal pollution. It's something that happens in the night. Misha karyoy gayim like. That's because it's a nocturnal pollution. It happens in the night. He had thoughts in the night. Yotzazeh, that excludes the semen of a zav. She'ein kiryoy gayim like. It's not generated by thoughts of the night. Ela davar acher gayim like. It's generated by his sickness, by his ziva. Kamash malan, and therefore the kal v'chaymer is necessary for maga, and we should say dayai that it's not matame b'masa. So the Gemara says your argument is not good. When it says mikra laila, a nocturnal pollution, does it say that and no other reason? Midei v'loy davar acher ksiv? Therefore, we already know that the carry of a zav is tamei b'maga because it's like anybody else's carry. And therefore, the kal v'chaymer only teaches us that it's tamei b'masa. And therefore, if we would take that away, it would render the kal v'chaymer moot and useless. Therefore, we don't say daya. So now the Gemara says, okay, you gotta clue me in over here. You're telling me that the semen of a zav is matame b'maga b'masa. Who holds that way? That the semen of a zav is matame b'maga b'masa. It's even matame when you carry it without touching it. Loy Rabbi Lazar v'loy Rabbi Yeshua. It's not Rabbi Lazar and it's not Rabbi Yeshua. The Tanan, for we learned, this is a Mishnah in Nazir. Shikva zera shel zav, the shikva zera of a zav, the semen of a zav, matame b'maga ve'ein matame b'masa. It's not matame when you carry it. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer af matame b'masa, but not because the carry is matame b'masa. It's only matame b'masa lefi she'i efshar b'lo sichsuchei ziva. It's impossible that his semen should not have some drops of ziva. So says the Gemara, Ad kan like cover Rabbi Yeshua Hasam, and even Rabbi Yeshua that argues on Rabbi Eliezer, it's only elam she'i efshar b'lo sichsuchei ziva. Obviously, he also doesn't hold of the kal v'chaymer. Ella says to Gemara, but don't sweat. Hi Tanahu, it's the following Tana. The Tanan lamala mehen, another level is zoivai shel zav. Another level is the zav of the zav, the issue of the zav. V'roika, his spittle, v'shich v'zarai, and his semen. Omei raglav, and his urine, v'dam anida, and the blood of a nida, metam and bein b'maga bein b'masa. So the Gemara says, but how do you know that when it says shichva zera, it's because the shichva zera is metame b'masa? Maybe it's because he holds that it's efshar b'lo tziczuchei zav, v'dam ha'achanami lefi she'i efshar b'lo tziczuchei ziva, but the shichva zera itself is not metame. Says the Gemara, because im kein lisnaye gabe zoivay, it should have said zoivay shel zav v'shichva zara. If the shichva zara is only because it has some drops of ziva, it should put it right next to zoivay shel zav. Ma'ishna diktani loy gabe roikai. Why does it say interrupted with first roikai and then shichva zara? Ela mishum da asi miraikai, because it's learned out from a kal v'chaymer from roik, like we said. Madach tar from tar, the roik which is tar from tamei is tamei from a tamei. This which is tamei from a tar should surely be tamei from a tamei. So now the Gemara says, okay, you unraveled that. Let's look at the next case. Let's look at the next case. As we welcome in Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg for our 28th. Koyach, 28 is Koyach. it is a praise to everyone that comes and learns after a long day a Gemara which weaves in and out in unfamiliar territory, and they do it like Mark with a smile on his face, right? Mark wants to know, are you doing a chak tonight? No, sorry. This Maggid Shir is a wimp, and he can't do a chak in one day like that. It's Wimpy Weiss, they call me. It's funny, they told me that, I'm doing the chak in English. Before me, this Mifal Chaka Alami hired people to do it in Yiddish and in Hebrew. So the Yiddish chak was done by probably the world's most famous Yiddish Maggid Shir of Daf Yomi, and that's Rav Mechel Zilber. Rav Moshe Sherry used to call him his Rebbe. So Rav Mechel Zilber did it in Yiddish, and the Mosika Or, Rav Levenstein, did it in Hebrew. So they told me, you should be able to do it every night, So you see, that's why I said, Mark, I'm Wimpy Weiss. Wimpy Weiss can't do it every night. What could I tell you? Anyway, so the Gemara says, another case where it seems to be that we say that it seems to be that we don't say daya, even though the kal v'chaimer would not be rendered moot. V'aitana loy dorish daya, the following Tana does not employ daya, v'afal gavna loy mafrik kal v'chaimer, even though it doesn't render the kal v'chaimer useless. The Tanya, new case, mapitz b'meis, a mat. Now this should not be confused with a sukkah mat. This is why when they came out with sukkah mats, the Olam was horrified, because a mat is a keli. It doesn't have a base kibble, but it's a keli. And a keli, is possible for schach. Right? So it had to be a mat. If you look carefully at the fine print, it says that it's a mat made specifically for use of sukkah, for nothing else. Right? Because if it's a mat that's made for resting on the ground, right, like they do in European countries, then that mat is possible schach. Right? So mafitz b'meis minayin. How do we know that a mafitz, even though it's pshutei kleitz, it doesn't have a base kibble? How do we know that it is susceptible to the tumah of a mace if it's touched by a mace or it's under the roof with a mace? How do we know that it's tamei? And we're going to see how do we know that it's tamei tumas erev, and how do we know that it's tamei for 7 days? So the Gemara says v'dinu u'ma pachin ketanim madach, small earthenware jars whose mouth is not big enough for the zav to stick in his fingers. It's very, very small mouth. Oma pachim ketanim shetahoirin bezav. They're tar with a zav, because if the zav can't put in its fingers in, and a klei cheres is only metame me'aviroi from its interior, and this mandiyama holds that anything that's not susceptible to the maga of a zav is not susceptible to the hesed of a zav as well. So ma pachim ketanim shetoirim bezav mitame b'meis, they're tame with a mace. Mafitz shemitame bezav, because anything that you sit on or you lie on is mitame bezav. Einoi din sheyeh tame b'meis, it should surely be tame b'meis. V'kamaisile, and we use this kal v'chaimer bein l'tumas erev, bein l'tumas shiva, that it should be tame till nightfall, and it also should be tame 7 days. V'amai, why don't we say ema hani kal v'chaimer l'tumas erev, that the mafitz is tame until nightfall. V'hani dayai la'afukei tumas shiva. So the Gemara says So here you see that you don't say daya, even if it doesn't render the kal v'chomer useless. Because the kal v'chomer would be useful. It would be tell you that it's tamei until nightfall. Amalei, so he said, Kvar Rama Nihale Rav. This was already asked, this question, by Rav Nechumi by Zechariah. Very interesting that the editor over here puts Reish Nun, even though most people would think it's either Rav Nachman or Rav Nosson. And it's neither. It's Rav Nechumi. Very interesting. The editor had a lot of faith in our knowledge here. Farama Nihale Rav Nechumi bar Zechariah LaAbaya V'Amalei Abaya, and Abaya answers, you got the kal v'chomer wrong. That wasn't the kal v'chomer. Tana mimapetz b'sheretz ma'isila. The Tana was learning, how do you know that mapetz is susceptible to the tumah of a sheretz, which is taka only the tumah of the evening? Bava Kama Mafetz b'sheretz minayim v'dinu. Oma pachim ketanim shetoirim b'zav. Mandach pachim ketanim, which are torah by zav. Tmeim b'sheretz, because, as the Mefarshim explain, sheretz, which is tamei, with a adosha, with a lentil, can get into that small opening. A lentil of sheretz could get into that small opening, which the fingers of the zav cannot get into. So mafet shetamei b'zav. Mafet says tamei b'zav ain't a din shetamei b'sheretz. Now over there we're only learning out tumas erev, because sheretz is only mitamei until the evening. And if you would refute it with daya, that would refute the whole kal v'chomer. So the Gemara says, oh, so then taka, how do you know that a mapetz b'meitz is tamei 7 days? El a mapetz b'meitz minayin. That we learn out from Gzeira Shava. Nemer beged v'ar b'sheretz. It says beged and ar by sheretz. V'nemer beged v'ar b'meis. Ma beged v'ar hamer b'sheretz. Mafetz tamei by. Mafetz is tamei. Av beged v'ar hamer b'meis. Mafetz tamei by. And therefore, as the Gemara is going to say, that, and each one is tamei with its normal rules, which is the rule of don minei, the ukei ba'asra. And therefore, just like mafetz is tamei by a sheretz for 1 day, so mafetz is tamei by a meis for 7 days. So the Gemara says, first of all, this is a Gzeira Shava that has a pircha. Because how could you learn out meis from sheretz? Sheretz is tamei b'kadasha, while meis is only tamei with a kazayas. So it must be mufne. It must be that the words are extra. If it's not extra and it's a drasha because the words are extra, because if it's not extra, there's a refutation. It's only says you're right. It's extra. Sheretz is juxtaposed to Shechva Zeret. It says next to Sheretz, first it says Oish Asher Teitze Mimenu Mikre Loila, V'samach Le Oish Asher Yiga B'Kol Sheretz. So it juxtaposes Sheretz and Shechva Zeret. V'ksiv Bei B'Shechva Zeret V'Chol Beged V'Chol Ar Asher Yiyolav Shechva Zeret. So therefore we know Beged V'Ar through the Hekesh to Sheretz too. So Beged v'ar the cost of Rachmana b'sheretz lamali. Why did it have to say Beged and ar by sheretz? Shmamina lafnuye, says Gemara, but it's only mufta on one side of the Gzeira Shava. V'akate mufta mitzad echadu. Nich lamani yama mufta mitzad echadu l'meindim. Vein mashinim we learn out and we don't ask any perchus shaper. Elamani yama l'meindim mashinim we do ask perchus ma'ik l'meimer. Says the Gemara, the Beged and ar by mace is also extra. The meis nami afnuye mufne. Michtei meis is l'shechva zera. Meis is also juxtaposed to shechva zera. D'chsiv anegeh b'chol tmei meis to tmei nefesh or ish asher teitzi mimenu shechva zera. So you see, it says mace next to shikla zera, and by shikla zera it says shikla zera chol beged v'chol ar asher hoyol of shikla zera. So why does it have to say beged and ar by mace? Beged v'ar the kasser rachman mace amali shmami no lafnuye. Oh, since it's extra on both sides, we surely don't ask. Vavi mufna mishneit stadin. Now, but the thing is, we said that we learn out tumas mapitz b'mace for mapitz b'sheretz. But by sheretz, it's only until the evening. How do we know by mace that it's 7 days? So that we learn out that mafetz is tamei, and then we put it with the regular rules of a mace, which is 7 days. But if we learn it out, and we take only the rules of where we learn it out from, so since by sheretz is only until the evening, then it should be by mace also only until the evening. Ma'iklamema. Amarava, Amakra, no, there's a pasuk by mace that tells us that anything that's tamei mace is 7 days. Amarava, Amakra, v'chibastem bigdeichem b'yoyim hashvi'i, kol tumas she'atem etamim b'mace, all tumas that by our mace, lo ye pchusin mishiva, are no less than 7 days. And therefore, once we learn out that mafetz is tamei from the mafetz of sheretz, then this pasuk tells us that anything by a mace is tamei for 7 days. Okay, Rabbi said this was not an easy Gemara, although Marshall made it easier for us, but we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis now, which is also...
Can I ask a question?
Which is also not so easy.